Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Extreme Studios, just west of Orlando, Florida, near a tiny crooked lake. I am here in Extreme Studios, talking with RDV from the Great Midwest. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be covering the recent in-theaters movie called A Working Man with Jason Statham in it, excuse me, sir. How dare I say something contradictory, which... it's kind of interesting because contradictorily speaking, there's really not much to say about Jason Statham and his movies because they're all pretty much the same. And it's not a bad thing. It's kind of like a strength. You know what you're going to get with him. The only difference with this movie I want to point out initially, and for my take, is they got a lot of big names in here. It's doing reasonably okay at the box office.
It's only been out for a month.
Yeah, and it's made most of its money just because of the way things go. But Stallone helped, I think, get the story and write this a little bit. It's longer than what you normally would think. It's about a 2-hour film instead of like say 90, 100 minutes, right?
An hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah, you can definitely tell there's a bit of a different touch to it, not just because it's Guy Ritchie or whoever directed it or whatever is involved in it, but because of Stallone's touch and the way some of the characters are in here. There's some good things and some bad things in here, but ultimately, if you're a Jason Statham fan, you're going to end up seeing this movie and you're going to be like, okay, it is what it is. It's not horrible. I don't think it's awesome, but we talked about, what was it, The Beekeeper from a year ago.
Yeah.
And he said some other ones that are kind of more forgettable than this one. This one's solid. I definitely would say so. It feels different than his other films. A little bit better, like a half step up in quality.
So, yeah, Stallone obviously is friends with him, since Expendables. Stallone had a part in actually writing part of the script. It's adapted from a comic book writer, Chuck Dixon's book called Leave on Trade.
Are you familiar with Chuck Dixon? Because I don't know about any of this.
Chuck Dixon is he wrote Batman for pretty much about almost 30 years. He also wrote some Robin stuff too. He was in charge of the whole post-crisis era over in DC Comics from the 1986 or late 80s to like the early 2000s.
So this Chuck Dixon guy, I mean, like, people like him, right?
He is one of he's probably known as the comic writer who's written the most stories.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, he's worked pretty much everywhere now. And honestly, this is he's a huge conservative, and it was kind of blackballed from the industry. So he's been doing some other work for some other YouTubers, Eric July, working with his comic books. They're doing their independent stuff, their Kickstarter, and Indiegogo, but he also writes trades on the side, his own novels of this, and this is an original novel that he worked on. As the guy, he wrote the comic book called The Nam back in the day, which is actually was known for taking actual real life accounts from actual Vietnam veterans and putting it into each single issues with their permission, adapting it.
Oh, so like documenting in like a comic book format, a real life Vietnam mission.
Yeah. So
interesting. I did not know any of this.
This guy does his research, and that's probably why this movie kind of felt a little bit more different than some of the movies you see, a lot of the action movies.
That would explain it, because I don't want this to come across as a complaint, but it definitely feels different. I just thought it would be a little bit of the Stallone touch, because there's one or two things I think they're somewhat humorous in here, but it's not a comic book feeling type movie to me. It's not like Punisher or Daredevil or anything that is. This doesn't feel that way at all. It's well written, actually.
It does not feel like the Samaritan. Stallone, but you kind of get a hint a little bit of the Punisher that as far as the Netflix stuff.
Right.
First season where he's going around tracking people and how he does this. So basically, the whole story is this guy, Levon, who basically he's a former British
SAS.
Yeah, SAS. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, special ops. And while he's away, his wife, committed suicide. So his youngest daughter has been living with his father-in-law, who hates him, blames him for his mother, for his daughter's death, or for his, Levon's wife's, death, drove her to suicide because she was never there. But it turns out she's actually always been manic depressive. But anyway, so he's in a custody battle for his daughter, but he's gave up his life at being special ops stuff to do an honest trade. He's working for this Garcia family. Michael Pena is the actor who plays the father, and then he has the daughter who ends up being kidnapped at this bar where she's underage. With their friends, they're trafficked, and or at least she is. And so basically, this is him. Basically, I have a certain set of skills. I'll find you. Pretty much. This is like the more badass version of Taken.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, one of the issues I had a little bit here wasn't necessarily about the family wanting to get their daughter back and them having a good connection. I thought that was fleshed out well. And of course, the
Yeah,
early introduction to some people coming in and him beating them up. That was neat. But what I didn't like was the girl, the daughter, because I didn't hate her. She's doing, 18, 19, 20-year-old girl
yeah,
things, but it just made me go, hey, I don't care if you get kidnapped.
yeah. Towards the end, actually, I said
That's
like her
different,
conversation
but we don't
was
see that
actually
early on, right?
no. She wasn't like Mary Sue where she had her faults. She was, but she was taught from her grandfather. Who was military stuff. We even get a hint of that earlier in when she talks to Jason Statham after seeing him confront some gangsters or basically customizing or costing. Sorry, one of the workers at the construction site. So and she's like, and so basically she's like, oh, I recognize, I know what you did, and there's no secret. But she mentions that her grandfather told her how to break fingers and how and stuff. So basically, she's got somewhat of a gist, of idea.
That's cute.
But yeah, honestly, she wasn't overly annoying. It's like it's
She
some of the other
wasn't.
characters.
Yeah.
We've watched Transporters. We watched Transporter 3, where the girl was a little more annoying when he was trying to help her. So it's like this was like a fresh change where the girl actually ends up getting away from actually the two I guess kidnappers. They just got to call them,
Yep.
the bumbling idiots. They're not, and I don't say that they're bumbling idiots, but you could
They're
tell that they're
cartoon
not.
characters to me.
Yeah, they weren't overly the top like idiots, but but they were actually but they were still competent too as far as the things they could do as far as her handlers. Anyway, she managed to get away. But what I like about this is that we were like, oh, she's gonna get away, and then she runs into these corrupt cops who are also working for the Russian gangsters. So and it all connects to the Bratva, which I thought was really great in this.
Mhm.
For those who watch Arrow, your connection to the Bratva, that was it. That was kind of weird, but and totally. But in this, it's like he goes to the bar where she last seen. The bartender lies, and he tracks him down to his home after doing. Basically, he finds LA, finds possible an alleyway where basically women are being abducted. He finds a little bead on the ground, material, jewelry for stuff. So he goes to the bartender, ends up basically interrogating him, waterboarding him, which I thought was
I
hilarious.
love the fact he was
Yeah.
we don't get enough waterboarding and torture in
Jason Bourne
movies.
is the last time I remember that.
That I can tell too.
Benedetti?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, electrocution. I don't know that we've seen too
Yeah.
much serious
No.
electrocution. Let's
So
make torture great again.
it's not great again, but let's
Hey,
acknowledge that it serves a purpose.
let me segue for a moment about this because this movie's violence is a bit different than what we're used to seeing because they
It's
amp it up a
Punisher,
little
John
bit.
Bertha level.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to say about this, in all seriousness, is when you and I have covered, starting off with 80s films in general, doing 70s and 90s, of course, and all that with action. We mentioned how a lot of stories from people in Vietnam coming back. We saw like with Rambo, and we saw that with people that had special ops training, and of course the martial arts craze with ninjas and cannon and all that. We did see, and especially in the early 80s, a darker side of movies where they were a little bit more of exploitative type. And they would show you stuff that only if you were in the services that you even thought about or knew of when you were overseas, being electrocuted, being this and that. Now, obviously, Casino Royale 2006, there's the infamous scene there where the car gets, where he gets hijacked basically, and he saves the deal, and he gets his balls beat literally, and we kind of see it, but not really, not like we would see in some Charles Bronson films or other things. So when they started going to that in some of these scenes here, I was like, hey, this is a different film. You could tell already.
Yeah, in this, Eve Morrow plays one of the kidnappers in here, and she's like she's actually been in a lot of different B movies. Where the daughter playing in here, when he's kidnapped, Ariana Rivas, she hasn't been in much. She's fairly new to acting. She's only 23 years old.
She did fine, I thought.
Yeah, yeah. She's got a new movie coming up called Black Phone 2, a sequel to something. So,
The Black Phone was a good movie. I liked it a lot.
So she's in that. She's gonna be in that sequel.
Mhm.
Yeah. Honestly, the cast was actually pretty good. You had David Harbour playing Gunny, who is a former military veteran or soldier. That that
There's really no reason for him to be in there, but they fall on the spot, and I don't have a problem with it. Yes, that's the sheriff from Stranger Things, ladies and gentlemen. That's David Harbour.
But I want to point out, the very beginning of this, we get like an Ian Fleming kind of intro without the hot babe singing or the hot babes. It's about almost like a James Bond intro, the way they do the computer graphics and stuff. And it tells Liam, when he was back in the service, combat stuff. You see the guy gets blown up at the grenade. That's David Harbour. You find out later on because he's blind. Yeah. So it actually was like necessary as a creative way of explaining his past in the war and how he basically put that life behind him after his wife died. He wanted to be there, for his daughter.
They actually tried to flesh out a lot of the characters in here.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, a bad thing, because the Russians were not done well, I thought.
The Russians were pretty much rent-a-bro.
They were rent-a-bro, exactly. Yeah. And they had flashy suits, which personally I liked, but they were not cool and stylish. They were kind of femmy in a way, and I'm like, really? You're going to give me all these bad guys and man, these guys go hard? No, they were rent-a-bros.
So you say that they seem kind of weak and all. Well, look what today's modern man is. These guys are working for Brafa. A lot of them were stooges. The little ones that were dressed in the jumpsuits, they were spoiled sons of one of the Bratva members.
What I want in the movie?
Stooges.
Here's what I want, RDB. And tell me if you've heard of this, because I'm telling it now live for everybody to hear. This is my idea, and someone's going to steal it. Just pay me some residuals, and we'll come to an agreement here on the Extreme Movie Show. I want some grainy footage of some average-looking Russian guy during a Russian winter with his vodka bottles. And yes, we all know that sounds kind of corny, but he goes outside without a shirt on, bare-chested with all furry, kind of a dad bod, and I want him feeding his pet bear. And I want him just wrestling with it, playing with it like we see on bad YouTube and TikTok videos. But I want that bear to be a bear that eats the bad people or something like that. If we're going to go full Russian, let's go full Russian. Let's just not go really bad, supposedly tracksuits.
If you want that movie, that's the guy with the axe killing Nazis that came out last year. That movie, whatever it's called. You can just look it up. A shirtless guy killing Nazis with an axe, and you'll probably find it But like I said, these the other Russian heavies were just like any other movie you watch. It's like I said, I can't blame it for doing what Hollywood's always done with Russian gangsters, whether you're watching TV shows or movies,
right.
So you have the degenerate son. Perfect example would be John Wick. I was
just gonna say that was the best degenerate son thing, where they're like, "Who did you steal this from?"
Yeah,
that was really great. That was phenomenal.
And as he's finding out these guys, he tracks, he waterboards the bartender. That leads to these guys other goons coming in there, and he ends a shootout with them, takes the money, and then he tracks them to see where they go to next. It takes a picture of the guy who shows up. He's like the underling boss, and so he follows.
He's detectiving a lot.
I love it. It was so great. It's like he's just pulling up his shook with his little camera and his microphone, and he's like sees the guy slap his wife, and then he goes in there, ties him to a chair, the rope.
This was cool. Like, the rich indoor pool scene where he's hanging him over it. That was cool.
Yeah, he slaps him. He's like, it was like that was for the woman.
That was for your wife.
She's my wife. No, that's for being an asshole.
Did you catch Did you catch when he knocked the guy out and then set him up there with the chair leaning back into the pool on the rope? Yeah. That he had popped in like some toast or whatever like that and was busy eating.
Yeah.
I like little touches like that. When you have food, you gotta be eating in a movie.
When I saw that, I thought he was putting the guy's phone in in the thing and just destroying evidence.
I kind of did too, honestly.
Because I love it because they show you him walking in. He keeps his head down with this. He's got a hat on, and this is the first time I've seen him with. I think it was a Homefront was the last time we saw him. He's a normal guy with a daughter.
Yeah.
They had to take out the bad guys. So he knows he puts his head down so the cameras can't see him. He walks in, and man, there's some poor lighting in the house. They can't catch up his face at all, but they do the silhouette. And he ends up like, he tells him, "I'm not. Here's your fucking money." He throws it on there, lets the guy sweat a little bit, ask him what's going on, and the guy gives a lip, and then he's just like, "Oh fuck you, I get you're done with me." Puts him in the water, and they let him drown. And you see the guy screaming as he's underwater drowning. I thought it was hilarious. I was like, that dumbass.
It was hilarious, but it was serious, which I liked.
Yeah. So then he said he starts following as far as the money and stuff, as far as it was because he basically had recording the guy. The guy was swearing at him in Russian, and he's like, "Oh fucking Demi," and then he's like, "Who the fuck's Demi?" So then he calls up one of his buddies, must be an ex soldier with him, probably served with him. who's working in, because there's all places in Chicago. Just thought that was hilarious. I was like, really? I guess the Chicago mob stuff that makes sense. I guess because usually it's New York with the Russians.
Well,
But
Russians,
in this,
they'll have it everywhere.
yeah. But so yeah, he calls him for a favor. Yeah, this guy works for the drug enforcement stuff, DA. Gets some information, and then he starts tracking down that guy. And then they said, like, as he works his way, the undercover sting where he goes to the biker bar. That's where he goes, and he ends up like gonna buy some blue ice. Basically, he's looking for Walter White, some Christopher Persuasion, and I mean, and then this is like
they gave a half a thought to the name of the drugs, which is kind of funny. And this was weird too with this guy. This guy thought he was King Conan or something.
No. What he has the Game of Thrones, but it was all like motorcycle parts stuff in his chair. His Game of Thrones chair. And what's crazy about this is like, so the two idiots who one was a girl, the Marl chick I talk about, even Marl, he's called Artemis in this. Her and another guy spot him and recognize, like, oh, he must be a cop or something. I don't know who this is, but the guy, he's a gun in his pocket. You see it from the camera, and he takes him in the back room. He talks to this guy, he's a big old black dude, and he's the guy in charge. As far as if you want to buy product or buy drugs, whatever. Goes in there, and the guy tests him, has him fight with some of his guys, which we get to see kind of like Expendables fight. I've not seen the Expendables, but I did watch the bar fight scene when they were rehearsing and stuff. And honestly, this is where it felt like a Stallone movie right here.
Yeah. The
literally.
fighting was a little, and the violence and the fighting was a little different.
And you could tell if you watch Expendables, he's got the same moves as he does as he does in any other movie he does. But it kind of felt like an Expendables kind of like a direction, because Stallone was writing this. He was writing the screenplay for this. So it felt like a Stallone movie, but Stallone writing an Expendables character of Jason Statham's character, but putting it in a different movie. If that makes sense. But overall, well done. He literally beats the crap out of him, breaks bones. He's about to shove a bottle in the guy's throat, and he's like, hold it. So then he's like, go to meet me at this address, the Pancake House, and then we'll do the stuff there. Runs into the two underlings again. The girl's got the gold gun. We know it's her because we saw her with the Garcia girl.
Beautiful gun. I just thought it was cool looking.
Little golden pistol, yeah.
Yeah.
So you recognize the pistol because you got the gun in there. So like, oh, that's the chick that was part of the kidnapping. It's funny about this is like the main bad guy in this, the one who did like the kidnapping stuff. The dude kind of looks like Jared Leto a little bit.
And a lot of these Ruskies look alike.
Yeah. He's Emmett J. Scanlon is the actor, but he kind of, he's called by Viper. When I saw him, I was like, is that Jared Leto at first? Because I look like Jared Leto from Morbius, like with beard and stuff. But so honestly, this whole movie is just straight up like detective work action. If you like Taken, but like a little bit more like a 90s like a action movie. Like a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, almost in a sense.
Yeah.
Not as cheesy.
Yeah, exactly.
But
yeah,
it's like you took Van Damme, but and you with his coolness, and then did like a Punisher style in a sense, because he carries his shotgun with him. He also has a gun, and he said it's throughout the movie. There's a scene in there where he basically he's breaking people's necks. He shoved the bottle, and then later on you see the knives going into people's throats and their back of their head. And he's just taking them out with the little PK, little sniper, we call it a PPK, the James Bond game, or a gun, little silencer. And honestly, I thought this was really well done. It's been a while since I've watched a movie that I could really sit through and enjoy the whole entire through, because this is a movie I would say would go straight to DVD. You wouldn't see it in the theater. It'd be on a Blockbuster on the wall. You're like, what is this? But it's Jason Statham. Fuck, I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
Kind of like how Dolph Lundgren used to do these. DVD movies. Yeah, and they weren't necessarily bad, but you knew what you're getting into, and that's kind of how I feel about this. And that's kind of why I feel like this movie is kind of flopping a little bit in the theaters, I mean, not and I mean, streaming has a lot to do with it. There's a lot of people who just don't want to go to the theaters, but according to IMDb, so far this is a 5.8 out of 10, and I could see why people would say that, because a lot of people who are watching movies today were not watching the mechanic movies, and they probably think, oh, these are just kind of boring, whatever. They want, all this other weird stuff.
It is long,
it is.
especially by Statham standards,
Yeah.
and I don't have a
A lot of
problem
gun
with that. I was
violence.
a little surprised, so
Yeah.
I don't want any of that to kind of take away from it, but it might be a negative for some. And I would say it's interesting that you mentioned about the whole, how it's doing and all that. The thing is when you have somebody that does something really, really well, I don't have an issue with just kind of regurgitating
40 million
over
budget.
and over again.
So.
Yeah, 40 million budget. You can make a very competent action film, and it looks pretty good.
We should also point out this is David Ayer, the guy who did the first Suicide Squad movie, which I still think is the better one. So it was nice to see him getting another movie out. And David Ayer, if you don't know who he is, he's a director of the Beekeeper, which the last one came out last year, which I thought was really good.
Yeah.
He also did Fury. Remember the tank movie?
Yeah. Okay.
Tax Collector, End of Watch, Street Kings, back in 2008. The guys did a lot of different movies, So if you are not a fan of his movies, you probably won't like this. But he also did Bright, which is the other movie he did too. That was with Will Smith, and Harsh Times.
And Harsh Times is got Christian Bale in it, I believe. Here's the thing that, again, going back to Jason, some people might go, "Oh, he just does the Jason thing." Well, yeah, and I mean, you're getting consistency with knowing what he's going to get you. It's hard to sit there and say, "Well, who's going to give you an action film every time they release something?" And it's not a knock. And if people think, "Oh, it's pigeonholed, it's the same story, it's the same thing," well, that's what a lot of movies are. So it's one thing if you take somebody that will do an action film here and there, but as much as the budget was on what was the movie that we talked about, and I told you I knew nothing about it and told you how it didn't make sense. It seemed really dumb, and then you corrected me. I think you might have even been online about how bad it was, and that was Kraven the Hunter.
Kraven the Hunter, yes. That where you ignore the source material and decide you're doing everything. That's Sony.
Right. So here's the thing. I don't know about the source material. I appreciate the fact that you mentioned the whole Chuck Dixon thing and all that too. Yeah. But again, just looking at it, I go, this is a little different than those other films, and that's not bad. It is just different, meaning it's longer. The way they wrote it with the violence is a bit there. We're used to a certain amount of cheese and we don't mind it. But the problem is when you stay with that and then you don't get it, you're like, well, wait a minute, that's different. And I think Statham is the kind of guy that you can have in a movie and really not talk, just like Charles Bronson, just do your thing and I will just watch you in all seriousness. And one of the couple movies that we have talked about with Charles Bronson back in the 80s, the Death Wish movies and all that, is I could totally see him doing something like this when he gets, say, in his 60s and we know he's a little bit older, where he's not talking that much and he just does his thing. And frankly, it's like, I don't know of anybody else currently today that's like that.
Yeah. I want to point out that this movie is a lot like some of his other movies he's done in the past. And if you watch movies like Lock, Stock, Smoking Barrels or The Bank Job, or something like those, you know what you're getting with, And he has done. It's another one. He was in Vegas. Forgot what that one was called, but same thing where he is basically rescues a girl who's a prostitute who's being abused by stuff. Goes and rescues her and kills the gangster. So this isn't nothing new for him, and honestly, that's not a knock. That's good because this is the old version of Jason Statham that I love. Yeah. I don't like Spy, whatever that was. I Spy, that comedy bullshit. Fortune 100.
Movies. Yeah.
Or whatever it was, or Operation Fortune. Like, I don't care for that. This is what I like. The guy who just comes in and like you're gonna get your ass kicked. Kind of what Steven Seagal tried to do.
Well, it's what he did do, but then he got fat.
Well, even before he got fat, I think the best movie for him is like Hard to Kill.
Out for Justice, that's his magnum opus, but a lot of people like Under Siege.
Well, no, I was gonna say Hard to Kill, the one where they think he's in a coma, he comes back, and but the other one, Fire Down Below is the other one though. Remember that one?
Awful. That was awful.
But it was, like I said, those are straight up action movies. It wasn't this comedy. It was just and this is kind of feels like a '90s action movie.
Oh, absolutely.
In a sense, and honestly, we need more of that because I'm just tired of a lot of the comedies or the horror movies, the slashers where it's just like, I don't care for that. I want these, and it's rare to have an action movie these days.
Do you think that when we're talking about action movies and all that too? I mean, we've complained about how we don't like CGI generally speaking and everything here. I don't know that we really got a lot of that here, so I think that's a good thing. Again, I'm going back on where are the younger people that go to do some of this stuff, and I don't know where they're out there, and that kind of scares me a little bit. It's like, so enjoy it if this is what you like, because the action movies are far and few between. And look, people grabbing guns and doing action things because they work for the government or works for a government agency, it's not what we're talking about. I
was gonna say real quickly, the problem with Expendables, which was the first one, I thought was good, is that it should have been a one and done. So they kept making more and more, and it becomes a team movie where everybody has to have a turn to shine, and then you have a comedy, and that's what ruined it. Where ultimately, I just want Stallone kicking ass. I want Jason Statham kicking ass. I want Jet Li. Those are the moves I love. The underdog coming out, and this is a guy. He's like, who the fuck is this guy? Like the Beekeeper movie is like, is a guy who has a past, set of skills, and you fucked with the wrong guy.
Yeah, I don't have to know how he's going to do it. Make those scenes special and unique, so they're like 3 different big scenes, and he does something different in each one. I go, okay, those are the skills he has, because I know he's got them, right? Yeah. But you don't have to tell me what they are. I don't want to see a gun either. Look, I've got nothing against guns, but there's no need for it.
Well, that's the thing. As far as you look at, the movie, what was that? Before Expendables, you had The Losers, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, you had Chris Evans. As a group of red tape guys were forced to work together and take down a bad guy. It was a one and done. It kind of didn't do so well, but a lot of people look back at it and I was like, what, this actually was a lot better than than we thought it, that we thought it was. A lot of people shit on movies and they go back and they're like, oh my gosh, why especially when you watch a second time, you're like, this was really good. And this is a movie that a lot of people are sleeping, I feel, because it's only been out for a month, but still, like I said, it's 40 million, and I think it's only made, I don't think it's made that much. I think it made double. I think.
Well, that's enough for them to claim it as a profit and everything else there too. So when you look, you and I are big fans of the Reacher series. I still in order go season 1, season 3, season 2. But I found out that even though they're getting ready to go with season 4, each episode costs them $10 million to make. That's only going to go up every time they do it.
It's made $86.9 million so far in the box office.
So it'll clear probably 95 to 100.
And what's great about this actually only has a few big names, so they can afford, and that's the thing. That's what people don't realize, Wes. And that's what I said about when it comes to like Expendables. There's too many big celebrities, so they got to pay them. So when the movie flops, and that's what they do. The budget suffers because you're paying too much for the actor. That's why I liked about this. You only have one actor who's a big name. Michael Pena's he's somewhat, famous,
He does a respectable job.
Yeah, but he does it, I don't know him personally behind the scenes, how he acts, whatever. But anyway, but I said he did his job. The rest of the crew in here we thought was really well. And that's the thing. It's like, I'd rather we always say this. Give me the no name. Give me the Dudikoff, the one I don't know. Instead of giving me a whole bunch of big celebrity names in a movie, and it can be done well. Because that's how these guys get their names, Jason Statham wasn't a huge guy when he did Lock, Stock, 2 Smoking Barrels, where it was. Mm-hmm. Then he had movies like Snatch was another one, and a few other ones. Like you said, this is how people make their breakout in Hollywood. Give the nobodies a chance. Quit relying on the same people and over again. I like the fact that Stallone, even though he's older now, but he's actually like becoming a Mickey in real life. He's helping other people with their movies, Now he's not the best writer, but I'm saying like David Ayer had writing credit in this too, but so did Stallone, and Chuck Dixon. It was his novel, so I mean, he had some say on some of this too as well. And honestly, this is what happens when you actually allow people to write something without having to put in any. We gotta pander this crowd. We gotta pander this crowd. It's basically like Congress, kickbacks. We got to kick this. We got to pander this people, the lobbyists, this stuff. There was none of that in this movie. This is straight up like just making it for the fans and adapting the source material. Now, I can say I haven't read the whole read the book, but I know Chuck's in the way he is. He's not into any of that DEI or any of that stuff. He just writes a book. He doesn't give a shit if Hollywood likes it or not. He'll find if anything, if Hollywood doesn't want to make his novels, he's good because he makes money off his novels. People buy his books, and that's kind of why I like the show. Like we haven't reviewed on here, but Bosch has just been straight up, just been fun. That just ended Bosch Legacy. Amazon screwed them over. Thanks, Amazon. But I say this was refreshing. This is what I watched from Jason Statham, and honestly, going into it, I knew it wasn't going to be a big blockbuster movie because his movies aren't that.
No,
they're not meant to be.
They make money, and he does 1 or 2 a year. Now,
had this been done back in the 90s, maybe it would have made a lot more money, just like with Stallone did The Specialist. Stallone was a big blockbuster hit, because movies were allowed to be big blockbuster hits. They had bigger budgets. And everyone just went to theaters. There was no streaming. DVD was they made whatever movies money they make in theater when they made it in DVD sales. Now they can't even do the DVD sales anymore because everyone's just streaming it. So honestly, I think Jason Statham would have been a much bigger actor back in the day for action movies and this movies like this. But unfortunately, streaming ruins a lot of movies. It doesn't allow them to recoup a lot, but then again, there's the weird ones like Barbie and Oppenheimer, but other than that, though, like I said, I thought this was a good movie, and I look forward to seeing what other movies comes out because this is 2 for 2 so far in a row. I've watched Beekeeper and then this that I've really liked.
Well, we mentioned a while ago, I think during the holiday season, we're doing a bunch of different types of films and a lot of requests from the people that watch us when we put polls up and whatnot and the recommendations. And I think that one of the films came up with something on Netflix that was about something on a plane, and I don't know if it was getting abducted or not or whatever.
Snakes on a plane?
No, it's not snakes on a plane. It was a new thing. They heavily promoted. They put it on there. Had one big action CGI sequence of the car flipping over.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a chase movies. You had to get on here. You had a time constriction, whatever. And I can't remember, but the whole point of it was
which actor was in it?
No names. We mentioned the idea that it had come out then that they sit around, all the people in the studios, and say, we need a movie for a second screen, meaning like on your tablet or if you have something there while you're cooking or doing something else or whatever. And my fear is that back in the old days, to your point, back in the 90s, if Jason Statham did this movie or wasn't a big name, they could do it for pretty cheap and it could go to DVD, VHS, make its money, and you could have a life there. Now you almost can't do it. There is streaming, so there is potential for that, but of course you have to agree to a lot of things. And it's like, here, this movie was good enough where it wasn't that way. I'm glad it's out in theaters. Most of his movies do go there, if not all.
Yeah.
But he does strike me as that kind of guy that if he were not around, who would we go see? And that scares me because we don't get a lot of the type of movie that he brings. So you can call it, hell, it's not a great movie. It's just, action. It's just the same stupid. Well, yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm watching it, because I know what I'm getting. I'm going to see how creative they do with it. They take themselves seriously enough. And if they're not shitting on it just with shitty editing or some other bad stuff, it's good.
I want to read some of these reporters like this. If you're the critics saying, according to The Guardian, 2-star 5 view. At its best, the movie like functions as an update to a hard-boiled detective story with a resilient Bruiser conducting his own off-the-books missing person investigation. But Stallone and Ayer don't have the patience. Too much violence, too much bashing, skullduggery, small mashing is more their thing.
They needed more strippers. They need more nudity. They needed more torture. They needed all that kind of stuff. I read
someone say, "Oh my gosh, there's too much physical violence. You're a pussy." I'm sorry, you are. You don't want to hear it, you too, but that's what it is. You're. Oh my gosh, there's too much violence in the movie.
Well, let me ask you this: you mentioned about Chuck Dixon at the beginning, the character that this is based off, the story.
Yeah,
I don't know how violent he's supposed to be. What people forget about Death Wish with Bronson starting off in the 70s and then going into the 80s is that the character that Bronson portrays as an architect, and he was what you would call a classical old school liberal, not like the way they are today. And he's basically anti-gun and not into it. And then he discovers that it's the only thing that kind of keeps him even, right? And then he starts to like it. And everybody freaked about it. They didn't talk about the violence, though. It was more about the other stuff. And here, too much violence, well, it was kind of what you're supposed to get in this movie.
I also want to point out Chuck Dixon actually wrote Punisher too as well. So
When
that's
you
why it
say
seems.
that, which the Punisher like story or line that I'm unaware of.
Well, no, I'm just saying this is why this kind of feels like a Punisher movie. Him going around just taking out bad guys, and then like he isn't leaving them alive. He just kills all of them because they're trash. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, they beg for their lives, and he's like, I don't care. You made your bed. Sorry,
Let's be
Dad.
clear. They're
And
human trafficking. I mean,
yeah,
let's be honest.
so
It's so hot right now, right?
so if people are upset that he's doing this to these people, these are not nice people. Oh, they deserve due process. Sure. This is due process. It's, like I said, there's a whole movement against Punisher in the Marvel comic books right now, and it's just so weird to see that Punisher is even involved in any of the Disney stuff right now. It's on TV.
Yeah.
I guess the kids can't escape the fact that there are people who do like Punisher. So I mean, whenever I read critics about saying they don't like the action stuff because it's too violent, these are the same people who didn't like the Punisher movies because of the same thing. And this with this, it's a one-man guy going after tracking down, and the way he does it is done believably, logically.
Well, I agree with you. That's why I like the beginning stuff where you only have the one action scene to set up the violence there at the construction crew that drives the story for us. So that's necessary, right? It's not excessive, even though it's brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, he's doing a lot of the spy stuff. And then you realize he amps it up by basically killing the guy, throwing him in the pool. But that establishes some key things and sets the path of where he's looking. And he does it in a detective way. So we're not rushing from scene to scene here.
No,
it definitely has its own specific pace that you're going through, and it's not fast.
It does, it's at a deliberate pace. It doesn't speed up. It doesn't slow down. And I think what people probably did theory out of the loop is every time he with his daughter, because he's kind of like he's a troubled man. He's a past he gave up. He's struggling with it. Probably still has to come to terms with the fact that his wife committed suicide. And he's dealing with the fact that he has to help. He's trying to raise his daughter. But he doesn't have a steady house. He has a steady income, and he's got his father-in-law trying to, screw him over.
If somebody wanted to argue that maybe that they fleshed that out too much and wasn't really necessary, I could buy it. But I don't really care, honestly.
I was looking up. I was trying to figure out who the freaking grandfather was, because I was looking. I was like, okay, this, and I was just like, I didn't recognize him. I guess it's just as a regular. He probably, I don't say nobody hate that because I don't recognize the name, but I first thought it was John Malkovich,
right?
But then I also thought it was like, well, actually, when he had the hat on when we first meet him, when he first goes there, it's his day to pick up his daughter, take her to visit, and these guys throwing an Alice in Wonderland party in his front lawn. This guy is like what, and he's got the what's his name? Dennis Rodman freaking cap on from the 90s. Little
D-Rod.
Yeah. He had a little hat on, the like a blue or pink, whatever, and it's just like it's like the furry kind of like he had, and you can't see his face. I'm like, and he's tall. I'm like, oh, it's Ron Perlman. Then later on he takes off his hat and he's got the beard. I'm like, oh, it's John Malkovich. Then I'm like, wait, it's not John Malkovich. It's just they found a guy. They found the B-level movie guy who looks and sounds like him.
Right.
But honestly, like I said, at the end, the guy even makes amends with him, which I thought was interesting, because the Russians have these two like assassin guys who kind of look like, one guy looks like a vampire almost in a sense. They all wear the black trench coats now.
Mm-hmm.
They got the makeups off, and
the cleaning crew came in?
Yeah.
They were sending them stacks of cash to clean the blood and the bleach, bleach the blood and all that. That was funny. Yeah.
The barrels. And if anybody's watched Breaking Bad, you know what the barrels are for. They're gonna put the acid into the barrels, and they chopped up the bodies, put them in there, the barrels, and they just disintegrate them. I was like, oh, it's cool. And the funny was, the cleaning crew was all women. There was no dudes in there. That was interesting. I was like, well, so they must, yeah. So I thought that was actually pretty clever to have that, because you wouldn't be a Bratva if you didn't clean up after a mess. They even had 2 cops on their payroll who ended up getting their own just desserts at the end. The basically like the Baba Yaga, the guys are sitting in to clean up everything. The cleaner, they have their own cleaners, guys with the guys, the guys with trench coats, shooting the cops, killing them. So I was like, yeah, serves you right. Shouldn't have been working for the Russian mobsters, So everyone gets their just desserts, a happy ending. the girl goes back with her parents. You know, he spends time with David Harbour and his wife, and
They're his
then
family now.
he's been watching with his you know, who do they basically were babysitting his daughter while, you know, Jason his daughter while he was away killing everybody. So it's a happy ending at the end. And honestly, I don't know if this will get a sequel. I don't think it really needs one.
Doesn't need it.
But I do love the character. I would love to see some more stuff.
You know what I want to see though in one action film, seriously, and Statham could pull it off. Hopefully, seriously. And I'm serious when I say this. I'm half joking with the movie I'm going to reference here. I want to see an action movie like this go fully hardcore that involves conspiracies, involves the government, and involves trafficking, because that's, like I say, so hot right now. It's a oh, you got to take us seriously because we're peddling children. I want adrenochrome to be the focus of the movie as it unravels, because you know what that means. Yeah. I know it sounds disgusting and all that, but you know what? The closest movie that came to all this serious stuff was Eyes Wide Shut, and that certainly is no action movie. It's hey, let's make Tom Cruise's character look completely stupid. It was a social movie. Yeah,
that movie's so popular. It spawned so many different parodies. There's even an anime called Speedgrapher that rolls around that. The same setup. The guys going there with there, and this is a girl being kidnapped, and there's a secret organization. They're all wearing the Illuminati mask and all that stuff.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's an anime called Speedgrapher. I watched it. It was actually pretty good. Yeah, the dude had the ability to basically, whenever he took a photo off, it would blow it up, cause it to blow up. So it was kind of cool.
Final thoughts.
Final thoughts on this. A Working Man is a good movie, and they put the work into it. So it's really, the book's originally called Levon's Trade. You can check it out on Amazon through Chuck Dixon is the author. This movie is still in theaters, so should probably just be in streaming if it's not yet soon, because let's face it, most movies, if they don't do really well, if they don't have big budget movies, blockbusters, they don't keep them in theaters that long. So this will probably be on for rent probably now. If it's
usually, I think it's a 6-week window that's usually negotiated if it's a theatrical release. So you're right; it should be almost any week now. It should be showing up
because it came out March 28th. It's been a month almost.
Yeah, maybe 2 more weeks, maybe in May.
Yeah. So honestly, this is a movie I'll probably pick it up on Blu-ray because I hope that they start releasing more Jason Statham, like, you know, combo packs. You know.
Yeah.
But because honestly, I would love if they start doing that with more of the action movies. I know they have, like, for Lethal Weapon, they have, like, remember they used to do, like, the 4 DVD thing? But now I'm like, just give me the Jason Statham bundle. Give me the...
they're going to refuse to be selling DVDs and Blu-rays too much anymore.
I know.
So that's going to be a hard package to get.
I don't want Blu-rays and DVDs going away, but that is, physical media is going away, though, apparently. We just don't know when, but it's
now.
Yeah.
Now, honestly.
Yeah.
It's been phased out for quite some time. Yeah, I'll say this for my final thoughts. I agree with you. It's not his best movie. It's not his worst, but I would say it's in the upper tier. I think, again, a lot of it has to do with the fact it's a little bit different from his other films because the
Transporter, the Mechanic, it's right on the level with that for me. Especially
it's getting close. If those are 1A, this would be like 1B.
I would say it's right on the level with that one.
Yeah, it's he definitely can do all this. And the last thing I like about Jason Statham, I have to say, is he's the kind of guy that, you know, obviously he can kick ass and do all that stuff. But he looks like an every kind of guy. He's like 5'9", 5'10", maybe 180, whatever like that. So, I mean, obviously in shape and all that, but he's not the hulking kind of guys that just bash the shit out of you.
He's like John Berthel, who is the current actor for Punisher.
He's a physical individual, and I appreciate that. And I like seeing that. I don't care what his age is.
And he's calm, you know, collected, you know, just talking. You're quiet. It's just like, I don't give a shit about your money. I love it. Like the way he delivers the lines in here, and then he just he's nonchalant and just kills the guy.
All right, so we'll be looking to put a poll up here soon, ladies and gentlemen, for what film to review for Sunday. That'll be our selection.
Just want to point out that they're actually in this. There's shotguns, there's handguns, we got knives, we got bottles, we got grenades in here. Mm-hmm. That was really cool. Freight grenades. And
got the M14 at the end.
Yeah, M14 at the end. Oh my god!
Mixed in with some new technology, which is kind of interesting. I like that.
So, there's a little camera. You can tell where he is. A lot of SWAT teams do this, and armies do this. They have on their wrist, and they have like a little camera, and they can tell around the corner where stuff is, and they shoot.
Yep.
You know, so as a real thing, those guns they can just turn and shoot.
I want to see a movie with tracer bullets, though, if we haven't seen that already.
Oh,
All right, ladies and
and
gentlemen.
tracking devices, yes, was on the car too. So
Yeah, exactly. So he knew what he was doing, and that's what we're used to. Like, oh, he's going to track the guy. All
yeah,
right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what everybody picks for us to do Sunday. We'll get that poll up and repost it here on Twitter too. Ladies and
yeah,
gentlemen, if you have any selections, let us know. Hit RDV up or myself on the Twitter line or in comments down below.
yeah.
Anything else?
I'm thinking we might just go back to do some martial art movies. I'm not sure. Well, I mean, 90s are martial arts. Maybe the movie. Maybe when we put a movie up, maybe we'll just put as far as like genre. Let you decide because right now we've done like Val Kilmer. We did some. We've also done some other movies too as well. Did a martial arts movie. Whatever you guys want. Honestly, just leave a comment down below and let us know. And thank you for being here. And click like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and check out our other playlists. I definitely want to start building up our JCVD playlist along with our Jason Statham stuff. There's a lot we haven't done. We've done. Check out our Chuck Norris playlist. We've done a bunch of those.
80s in general.
Yep.
Yeah. The latest show is up as far as the TV review that I do with the young 20-something Professor Pixel, and of course that would be the Granada Sherlock Holmes with Jeremy Brett on there, episode 5, I believe. Episode 6 will be dropping on Friday, so that's cool. That's been doing very well. I encourage everybody to see that. That's probably the highest level of writing I think you can find in the show and portrayal of Sherlock Holmes, and at least that's our current standard. So we'll go with that for now. Till Sunday night, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.
Later, guys. Oh, and one more thing. If you guys could do this, it'd be really great. It's just fun. But if you could just stay extreme. Good night, guys.